Welcome to day 4 of week 5 of biology in quarantine. So today we are going to finish up the phylum Arthropoda, and we are going to do that by talking about the last category that makes up arthropods. So remember we talked about there's 3 main categories that make up arthropods: chelicerates, crustaceans, and insects. And today we are talking about the largest class in Arthropoda, which are insects. So it's easy to appreciate animals of all shapes and sizes and phylums, but it's really difficult to appreciate insects, I find. So even lobsters and different crustaceans and chelicerates are easy to fall in love with, but insects are kind of difficult too for most people. So hang with me. Hopefully by the end of this you will like insects a little bit more than you used to. All right, so let's talk about them. So insects have 3 body parts. They are sectioned off into 3 different sections. We have a little guest here today. They have 6 legs that don't branch. Oops. Okay, they also have 1 pair of antennae and 1 pair of compound eyes. So I've made a little chart for you guys that distinguishes the major difference between the 3 categories of arthropods, and I'll show you that in just a second. So almost all insects have wings, but there are a few exceptions. So anytime you see this suffix "tera," that means wings, okay? So pterodactyl, yeah, that's where that comes from. Okay, so P-T-E-R-A, yes, P-T-E-R-A. Ptera means wings. So anytime you see that within a name, that means the animal has wings. There are a few insects that don't have wings. So if you look in the top right-hand corner, that's what's called a silverfish. You've probably seen one of these in your house. So these guys like to sometimes live in your closet or in your garage. They actually eat things like cardboard and dust. So they're really more of a nuisance rather than they are a super huge issue. They also eat drywall, but it seems to not be at the pace where it's going to cause a whole lot of damage as long as you have some activity happening in that room. So if you've ever seen these, they really are like aliens, and usually you find them in the dark parts of your closet, for real. But if you step on them, they like completely disintegrate. It's crazy. You think that you haven't even stepped on it because it like just disappears in front of you. So those are silverfish, and they cannot fly. Some only have 1 pair of wings. So like flies, mosquitoes, and gnats, they're only going to have 1 pair. And then some have 2 pairs of wings. So these are going to be like your butterflies and your stink bugs. So if you look at that picture of the butterfly, I know it looks like she only has one pair of wings, but those are actually separate. So she actually has a total of 4 wings, or 2 pairs of wings. Another thing about insects that is pretty interesting is the way that their mouths are shaped. So take a look at this diagram. So we have what's called a piercing mouth. And the best way to kind of describe these is by using examples. And so this example is a mosquito. So a piercing mouth literally is like a sword that pierces into you or into its prey, whatever it's eating. So mosquitoes literally put a needle inside of you. So they have what's called a piercing mouth. Flies, on the other hand, have what's called a sponging mouth. So really they have kind of this capillary way of drinking whatever they want. So imagine if you were to drink through a sponge, that's kind of how the mouth of a fly works. It's not going to be pierced right directly into the skin of its prey, but it's going to be more of like a sucking, like through a sponge. Then you have what's called a siphoning mouth, which is a butterfly. So they are actually able to drink it like a straw. So whether it's flowers or prey or whatever, bugs that have siphoning mouths are able to drink it just like you would chocolate milk out of a straw. And then you have grasshoppers, which have chewing mouths. Let me move the slide a little bit so you can see it. So they're going to see those little appendages right there on the edge of its mouth? They use that for chewing. All right, let's talk about the reproduction of insects. They use something called pheromones. A lot of animals use this, including humans. But pheromones basically are just chemical messengers that affect certain behavior. So, for example, she's so cute. For example, a sugar ant uses pheromones. So the little scouts of sugar ants, when they find sugar, they're going to leave pheromones for their other buddies to come and find them, so that way they can all enjoy some sugar together. So insects, their sexual reproduction is through internal fertilization, which means that the egg gets fertilized inside of the female, and they undergo what's called metamorphosis. There's two different types of metamorphosis. So there's incomplete metamorphosis and then complete metamorphosis. So the incomplete is only going to have 3 stages. So a classic example is going to be the life cycle of a grasshopper. So grasshoppers start off as eggs, and then they develop into what's called nymphs. That's going to be your baby to young adult grasshopper, and then they're going to grow into adults. So as you can tell, I mean, it's the same grasshopper. Not much has changed. It's not like he looks completely different from stage 1 nymph into a mature adult. So really there's only 3 phases that he goes through. But complete metamorphosis is when you see a total change in the creature's appearance. So classic example is going to be a butterfly. So they start off as eggs, then they are larvae, and then they do their thing as pupas, and they become adult butterflies. So they look completely different from stage to stage. So there are 4 stages of complete metamorphosis. So let's talk about insects and the environment. So they do affect the environment positively and negatively. So negatively, they can be a source of harm because they can cause disease. They can also eat crops and affect agriculture. So a swarm of locusts or some type of beetles can eat your entire crop. But for the most part, insects usually are a good thing. So they're a vital part of the food chain. We have to have them in order not only for the other species we know and love to survive, but also for us to survive. So they are responsible for pollination, which is absolutely essential to human survival. So the unsung hero of the insect community is going to be the honeybee. So I have a fascinating video that will be a part of your quiz and your test coming up that you need to watch. It's underneath this video, and it's all about honeybees. So make sure that you take good notes, and I will be sure that we go over it together. So the last slide that I want to talk about is going to be the last slide for arthropods. So you really need to know this slide in and out. So we have their chelicerates, crustaceans, and insects, and it talks about the difference between them, difference between their body sections. So for chelicerates, they have 1 or 2, crustaceans have 2 or 4, insects have 3. Legs, chelicerates have 8, crustaceans have 10 or more, while insects have 6. Insects are the only ones that are going to have wings, but remember the number of wings they have vary. And only your crustaceans and your insects are going to have antennas. So crustaceans will have 4, that's going to be your lobster and your shrimp. And then your insects will only have 2, that will be your butterflies and your bees. Love you. So be sure that you are familiar with this chart. Make sure that you watch the honeybee video. The honeybee video will not be on your quiz. So let me make that correction because I know I said that a couple minutes ago. The honeybee video will not be on your quiz, but it will be on your test. So for your test review, we will go over the specific information you need to know about honeybees, but be sure that you watch the video and you take notes on it so that way you don't get behind. All right, guys, if you have any other questions about arthropods, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you.